Welcome back to Jelly Bean's channel. As per usual, this is Jelly Bean. He's the host of your show. I'm Alita. I am the co-host, and these are my books. You've reached our channel, but mostly my channel. He just thinks it's all about him. So, can you believe February is gone? It was here, and now it's sailed away. I filmed this video at the beginning of March, and then I lost the footage, but I found the SD card that this was on. So it's a little late, but hey, you're getting February's wrap up after all. Right? It seems like 2023 is just going by at the blink of an eye. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but it's going quick, I think. So, as our new, review for the month is going, I'm just going to tell you some stats, maybe put some pictures up here when I edit about these stats. So something that I found interesting is that, as you can tell, in February I read more books than I did in January. I read 23 books in February, which, really? I didn't notice, but in January I only read 19 books. The interesting thing for me, though, is that I read more books in February, but I read less pages. So I read 4,857 pages in the month of February, as opposed to January, which was 5,478. I just read shorter books in February. So far this year, I've DNF'd 4 books, and we will be talking about the one that I DNF'd in February. Whoa. Okay, so I'm just seeing this for the first time. Wow. How did I manage that? So one of my goals for this year, besides to read my physical TBR, for I think this year and last year, was to read more series and not be afraid of them. I am 50-50 series and standalone, 50%. So I've read 21 books that were part of series and 21 books that were standalones. Wow. I'm very proud of that. By the end of the year, I expect series to go down in percentage, 30% to 70% being standalones. And I would be comfortable with that, but any, between the 50 and 70% mark being standalones and the rest being series, that would be cool with me. But right now, it's exactly 50-50. So that's kind of cool. Then, woo. I'm just gonna pop this chart up here real quick. This is the different genres that I've read. Okay, so my 2 top read genres are tied for first place, and it should come as no shock to you that it's thriller and romance, with both being at 23.8% of my reading, or 10 books each. The surprising thing, kind of surprising, is that the third most read genre is fantasy at 9 books. But the only reason fantasy is that high up right now, I think it's definitely going to take a nosedive later in the year. But right now, I have been working on the entire A Series of Unfortunate Events series. The entire series. Anyways, A Series of Unfortunate Events by Lemony Snicket. I'm on book 11 of 13. So once I finish off the last 3 books in the series, the fantasy genre will plummet. I'm guaranteed. And then this little bar graph just shows you different book lengths. I'm not really going to talk about it, so if you want to look at it, you can pause. We can move on to star ratings. So again, I'm going to put this chart up here. It says that 35.9% of my reads this year have been 4 stars. So that's a pretty good reading year. And then the next highest amount is 23.1% of my books have been 2 stars. And then 17.9% of my books have been 5 stars, which is only 7 books, but I'm excited about that. Then 3 books have been 1 star, and 6 books have been 3 stars. So that's interesting, kind of all over the place. This chart that you are looking at right now does not surprise me in the least. So I just thought I'd put the age category up here because I keep saying that I'm like not interested in middle grade or young adult right now. I just feel like I've aged out of the system. So 66.7% of my books are adult books. Then I have like 1 book that was new adult and 8 middle grade books. But again, that's because I'm reading A Series of Unfortunate Events. So that's going to account for a big chunk right now. But in March or April, when I finish this series, that will take a nosedive as well as I read more adult books. And then I've read 4 young adult books in 2023, and I haven't really liked any of them. Not that I hated them, I just didn't really connect with them. And that's like my whole thing, is that I need to connect to my books. So this next chart actually, unfortunately, it doesn't surprise me because as I was logging all my books, I was realizing that all of my books this month, or a good majority of them, were written by women. And like, that's not bad. I've read 27 books by women, which makes sense because a big chunk of what I've been reading has been romance. And I don't know of any male romance authors. So I mean, that's interesting. I kind of hope by the end of the year that it kind of evens out a little, like my men to women ratio of what I read. But at the end of the day, does it really matter all that much? Yeah, that is all of my stats. Oh wait, I'm a liar. Our last stats, I'm actually really impressed with myself here as well. I have a tendency to like only focus in on those authors that I've read from before and loved their stuff. But if I've read from an author before and not liked anything, then I ignore them completely. And it's harder for me to pick up new authors. And I know that sounds really weird. Like, you can't find a new favorite until you read a book by a new to you author. And that makes sense logically. But when I'm picking books, I'm like, ooh, okay, I've read from this author. I really like their stuff. Let me pick this and this and this. Interestingly enough, I kind of expect this number right here to kind of stay equal, or I kind of hope that it stays equal throughout the year. We'll see. But right now, I have read from 20 authors, or 20 books from authors that I've read from before, versus I've read 21 books that are new to me authors. Excuse me. So that's kind of interesting. It is very, very close. I have read slightly more new to me authors, which is great. I love trying out new authors. It's just the initial getting their books and actually trying an author that I've never read from is intimidating to me. I don't know if that's for like how everyone sees it, but especially those really hyped authors. Like, I was so terrified to read Emily Henry, and now I love her. Now we are going to talk about my least favorite books of the year, and then we're going to go into my most favorite books from there and end on a positive note. Before we get into my least favorite and my most favorite books, one of my goals for 2023 was to read most of my nonfiction, my goal is to read most of the books on my shelf, but I specifically made a goal that I think I want to read a minimum of one nonfiction a month, if not more. But some of my nonfiction is more dense and will take more brain power than, like, these two did. One of these I read in one day and the other one I read in like 4 days, but I'm going to keep it for reference. So, on my February TBR, my husband picked The Honest Life by Jessica Alba, Living Naturally and True to You. I don't rate nonfiction, so I'm not going to give you a rating, but I can see how this would be helpful for some people. I'm going to keep it around for reference, for referencing different things, because there's like cooking naturally and recipes and different things like that. And I'm honestly working every single day of my life to become a better human. And some of her philosophies in life are really interesting to me. However, I did find this book a little like preachy, a little self-helpy. And I wasn't really expecting that. I was thinking more of like, this was her journey and how the Honest Company came to be. And yeah, that's what it was. But it was a little preachy for me at times. Am I going to keep this book around? Probably, yeah, because it has guide to cooking, different things, and what to have in your pantry, and different things like that. Am I going to live through this as if this were like my Bible that I have to follow to a T? No way. But there were some interesting things in here that I would like to maybe look at later down the road. So I am going to keep it on my shelf, but I wouldn't say it's a favorite of all time. Arrested, Mugshots of the Famous and Infamous by Giacomo Papi. This was a very easy read. I read it in like one day. Actually, I read it in the span of a couple of hours, and it's really just mugshots and different people's stories, and like some of them were more interesting than others. But again, I don't rate nonfiction because how can I rate someone else's story? That's like me telling my story when I get older, and someone looking at me and saying that, well, your story is boring, I don't really want to hear about it. And like, I just can't do that to another person and their like life story, you know? Maybe I'm not the most interesting person. Maybe I don't go on all these crazy adventures. I still love adventures, but you know, I have these things called responsibilities now. And I'm digressing. But I did enjoy this. It was a very quick read. So there is that. Now we are going to turn our attention to my least favorite books of February. My worst, my middle worst, and then my like not as bad but still worst, if that makes sense. So it'll be like 1, 2, 3, and so 1, 2, 3 as in order. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. Our first book, oh my gosh, is called, it was a 1-star book. It's called My Dad's Best Friend by Katie Robert. I knew I wouldn't like this one going into it. I knew I wouldn't like it. But at the time I was reading books for the rom-com-a-thon, I actually vlogged it, and I never put the vlog out because I'm Alita and I have a tendency to film a ton of stuff and then never edit or upload it. Whoops. But I was reading it for the rom-com-a-thon. One of the prompts was read a smutty book, and I had this one on Scribd, and it was really, really short. Not short enough though. It was just uncomfortable for me. I don't like reading a lot of smut in my books anyway, so this was definitely a case of the book did not match the reader. Like, we did not vibe together. I've heard a lot of people say amazing things about this book, but just for me, it didn't work. And I think that that's okay. I know where I stand with that. And it wasn't that. I don't know if I reviewed it, but we're gonna see if I reviewed it. I'm pretty sure it's just that, okay, I didn't review it because I have nothing to say about it, because I know that it was just a me thing. Like, it's just not something that I would read. So if you like Penelope Douglas, you might like Katie Robert. I'm sure you would. Alright, number 2 is one that I actually own. So this was my one DNF of February, and this one was Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. And I know that I am by far the unpopular opinion here, and that is okay with me. So I DNF'd this after about 200 pages. And, yeah, I did go to Goodreads and look at spoilers, so I know who did it. I don't quite understand why, but, like, I really don't care either. So, in this, it's like a locked room mystery thriller about this family that gets back together for Nana's 80th birthday. When Nana dies, she was murdered, and then people in the family start dropping. And by that synopsis, it sounds pretty good. But I've tried to read from Alice Feeney before. I just don't think her writing is for me. And that's okay. Not everyone's writing is for everyone, and that's fine. So my review says, boring. Reminds me of We Were Liars, which I also DNF'd. I read 200 pages before I DNF'd Daisy Darker. Unlikable main character and boring and slow, and I stand by that. I will be putting this up for sale on Pingo Books because I don't want this bad mojo on my TBR no more, or on my bookshelves. It's just not for me. I don't think that Alice Feeney and I are gonna be close, and that's okay. Then our last book, I also read for the rom-com-a-thon, and this one was a 2-star, so it's not like terrible, but it just wasn't for me. So this is Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. I've heard amazing things about this, so I'm sure you've already heard everything there is to say about this. It's like second chance romance, but okay, so I had, oh man, spoilers though. Oh, spoilers. You know what? If you haven't read this, I might be spoiling it for you. Ooh. You know, on my records it says this is a 2-star, but as much as I'm thinking about it, I think this was actually a 1-star. So, you follow this girl, I don't even remember her name, Sam, and
I'm about to spoil this whole book for you, so if you're interested, like mute me or something. Sorry.
Percy and Sam were together during the summers when they were kids. They fell in love, and then something happened. They had this big falling out, and now, like 10 years later, Sam calls Percy and says Mom died, so she goes back for the funeral, and then they, like, rekindle something. That's a very loose synopsis, but the thing that I hated the most about this book was, yeah, I'm actually going to change my rating to a 1 because I did not love it. Well, anyway, this is more like a 1-star read for me. The only thing I really liked about it was the writing, because the writing is really good in here. I would definitely read another book by Carly Fortune, but this one wasn't it for me. So one major problem that I had with this was that because it was a second chance romance, you were going back to when they were kids and like years later now, but the past chapters felt like a childhood crush, like a young adult novel, because it was written about like these 13-year-olds making out. And, like, I really just didn't care about them, to be quite honest. And then okay, I'm really about to spoil this book. So if you have any interest at all, please go to, in reading this without me spoiling it, go to this time. Or actually just wait till my hand is down, and then you will know that spoilers are over. Yes, that works. Okay, so the biggest con about this book that makes me, like, so irritated that I read this, the rom-comathon, is the fact that what's her name? Percy. Yeah, Percy cheated on Sam. It reminds me a lot of 99 Days by Katie Cotogno, because both of the female main characters in both of these books, and they cheat on their, like, childhood crush or their childhood best friend or their childhood, like, boyfriend. And there's some kind of forced love triangle between Percy and her boyfriend's brother. And I just, forced love triangle. I hate forced love triangles, first place, but secondly, why do you always have to, like, make this really hot girl or this really amazing girl, and she falls in love with both of these brothers, and then she can't pick because she loves them both? Like, no, that is so, no. And then I also said annoying characters, unlikable characters, was a YA romance even though it's marketed as an adult. I just didn't like this. And we're going to keep it at that. I think that I hated all three of these equal. You know what? I think the new order of how much I hate. So, worst book, still bad, not as bad. Worst book is going to be the Katie Robert book. Just because it wasn't for me. Then, Every Summer After, because of all the reasons I just told you. And then, Daisy Darker. Even though I DNF'd Daisy Darker, I enjoyed it more than I enjoyed the other two. My 3 favorite books of February. This month was especially hard for me to pick my 3 favorites. Not because I had so many good books, which, like, would be a great problem to have, but because I didn't know what order to put my top 3 in, because they are literally microscopic pieces better than the others. Like, these top 3 are top tier. They are amazing books, and I'm pretty sure that I might have found new all-time favorite books this month. So, we're going to go from 3, 2, 1 as my favorite books. So, my third place. Now, remember that even though it's 3, 2, 1, all of these are amazing. I highly recommend all 3 of these books. They're just very differing genres, which really says a lot about who I am as a human, I think. Okay, so the only thriller of my top 3 was All the Dangerous Things by Stacy Willingham. This is a 5-star read for me. So, I read A Flicker in the Dark by Stacy Willingham, and I liked it. I liked it enough. but I didn't absolutely love it. I think I ended up giving it 4 stars because I thought it was kind of a predictable thriller. Now, I read a ton of thrillers. So, when this was another Book of the Month choice in December, I was just like, okay, I gotta give her another shot to kind of wow me. So, All the Dangerous Things follows this woman. Is it Naomi? I don't think her name's Naomi. Isabel. Follows this woman named Isabel, whose child was kidnapped out of his bedroom 1 year ago. And Isabel hasn't slept at all since then because she's afraid if she goes to sleep something worse will happen. But she's also like head first dived into looking for her son because the cops have stopped looking and they just assume that he's dead. And this whole thing has kind of ruined everything for Isabel, like her entire life, her marriage, her career, because she can't go to work if she doesn't sleep, and it's just like this whole whirlwind. And this was amazing. So what I said was I loved the characters. It was so unreliable of a read. Check mark. This is my worst nightmare, and I don't even have kids yet. You follow Isabel Drake, whose son was kidnapped a year ago. Isabel hasn't slept since then. She's obsessed with getting her child back while it's destroying her entire life. Her marriage is in shambles, and her health is up in the air. I loved this thriller. It really got under my skin. And it takes a lot for a thriller to get under my skin, but I loved this thrill ride. I was here for it. I thought it was perfection. Okay, so we have 2 more. That was number 3. This is number 2. And like I said, it was like microscopic points of why I picked in this order. So some would say that you could actually put them in a different order and it would still be correct, because this one and my top spot are honestly almost interchangeable depending on my mood. Right now, I don't want to read a sad book like Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. This is gut-wrenching, but it was amazing. And I'm just not in the mood for one of those. I kind of am hoping for more of a happy book. So right now, in the headspace that I'm in, my happy book is my favorite. But just ask me on a different day and it could be swapped, or they're almost interchangeable, like I said. So, number 1/2 is Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. I was not ready for this. My heart was not ready for this. You follow Yasmin and Josiah, who are divorced. They've been divorced for 2 years, and they co-own a restaurant together, and they're trying to parent their children together. And they're trying to learn how to navigate their mundane parts of life with each other, but without each other, if that makes sense. Like, as a divorced couple, how do we go to parent-teacher conferences? As a divorced couple, how do we talk about the finances of our restaurant? As a divorced couple, how do we move on with our lives? So, I have to say, this is a very slow book. Like, it's a very mundane day-to-day life, of a broken family. And it's very boring. And, like, typically that would not be my type of thing. I would be like, ew, too boring, not gonna do this. However, when I was reading this, something just clicked. And it made sense. And it hurt so much. But there are so many things that happened in this book that I can't really tell you about because spoilers, but because of the circumstances of Josiah and Yasmin's marriage, it imploded from inside and they are no longer together. But maybe one or both of them realizes that they didn't really give this marriage a real shot. Even though, they were married for several years. Like, I think their oldest daughter is 13, 14. So, they really did try, or at least from the outside it would seem like they really tried. But it was just... This book ripped my heart out and just tormented me for every aching decision that this divorced couple had to make together. And then, hopefully they heal together and they move forward together. But you don't know, because this isn't a romance book. This is, I would say, like, contemporary fiction, maybe literary fiction, but this was just perfection in a cup. So, this is what I said immediately after reading this book. So, I'm going to kind of yell because it's all capitals. I know it's early in the year, but I think this is going to be my favorite read of 2023. See, like I said, if I was in a different headspace, this one and the next one could be interchangeable. Yasmin and Josiah are perfect. I would not say this is a romance, although there is a romance in it. You follow Yasmin and Josiah, who have been divorced for 2 years. They are still learning how to co-own a restaurant and co-parent together. This book and these characters are so relatable. Talk about a book that rips out your heart and stomps on it, then lights it on fire just for good measure. This book broke every single part of me down, so I was a sobbing mess, and then it slowly helped me heal. And then I put a bunch of trigger warnings on there. So if you want to know the trigger warnings, go to Goodreads, because this was my review from Goodreads for this book. And then number 1 or number 2, because these top 2, interchangeable. I'm not going to quit saying that so that you know that they're on the same level. Yeah. So my first or second favorite book, depending on my mood, is Do I Know You by Emily Wibberley and Austin Stigma Broca. I believe that these authors are together in real life and they write romance together. Yes, they met and found love in high school. Woo! They're married. And they live in Los Angeles. Okay, so I thought they were together, which is great. So, Do I Know You? You might sense a theme here. This follows a married couple, Eliza and Graham. And for their 5th year wedding anniversary, I think Graham's mom buys them a little retreat for the weekend. And they, there was some kind of problem with the hotel. So instead of getting one like honeymoon suite, they got a honeymoon suite, but they also got an extra room. And since Graham and Eliza have been married for 5 years now, you know, they're kind of going through the 5-year blues. And things are not always so simple. It's not like, oh, we're married, we're happy, and it's amazing. No. I've said it a million times on this channel, but marriage is hard work. And I know that because I'm married. And some days, like, be a lot easier if we could just, like, not be married. But, like, at the end of the day, I love my husband. And I want to be married to him. And that's why we both make efforts to stay married together. But in this book, Eliza and Graham reached the 5-year mark, and I think they've both been lost, and they kind of both lost that spark together, and they kind of stopped giving any effort in their marriage. And this hit home for me because, like, we're great right now, but I mean, it hasn't always been that way. And I fell in love with these characters. But they go on this romantic beach getaway, and they each get their own room because of hotel mess-ups, which is whatever. And then when they go out in public, someone introduces them to each other as if they don't know each other. And neither one of them said, hey, that's my wife, or that's my husband. We know each other. No, they just started this game of, oh, yeah, let's fake date on our, like, anniversary trip. We're gonna just fake date. But it's not really fake dating, but it kind of is, because they each go to their own room at night, and they have these established rules about what's gonna happen during this weekend trip. And it just felt so raw and so real to me that I couldn't help but love it. I will tell you exactly what I said. I said, Do I Know You was the perfect read. You follow this married couple, Eliza and Graham, who are hitting troubling waters in their marriage. For their 5th year anniversary, one of their moms gets them a tropical trip where they start pretending they don't know each other. They either fall back in love or end up hating each other even more. And this book is actually full of a lot of drama, but it's also full of love. And it's kind of like, I mean, you follow an already established married couple, but at the beginning, it kind of feels like it's a hate to love type of situation. And honestly, this was just perfection. So if you want, like, just a low-key fun kind of read, Do I Know You is great. I would honestly recommend all 3 of these, but all 3 But if I'm being completely honest with you, these 2 are on a whole nother level. Before I Let Go and Do I Know You. Obviously there's a theme here. I like following already married couples. But then, All the Dangerous Things was a good thriller too. This one was just a lot of fun. So, if you want an unreliable narrator where you have no idea what's going on and you want to get her kid back as much as she does, All the Dangerous Things it is. But if you want your heart emotionally just damaged and never gonna be the same, Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. And if you just want like a fun romance that has their share of drama, but ultimately it's just a fun romance, Do I Know You? So, thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you are new around here, and I will see you in the next video.
Good night.